often as Christians, we think that if we have a good motivation, then that's all that matters to God. But we have to learn the principle that we have to do the right things in the right way. Methodology does count. And there are many times in life we fail. And we get very upset with God because we know we're doing the right thing, but we failed. And we get very upset with God because God didn't bless it, or God, in fact, did the opposite. He did not only not bless it, but he caused it to fail. We go, now, we're doing the right thing. Yes. Sometimes as Christians, we do the right thing in the wrong way. We use the wrong methodology because we have copied it from what we have seen other people do. Now, maybe the strongest illustration of this in the Bible is King David. In 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 to 15, David wanted to transport the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, where he wanted it restored to the people of Israel. Now, I want you to notice in verse 3, it says, they placed the Ark of God on a new cart and brought it from Abinadab's house, which was on a hill. Now, notice, put it in a new cart. The last time the ark had been transported, that's how it was transported. When it had been taken in battle, the enemies of Israel, a curse came upon them because they had stolen the Ark of the Covenant. They sent it back to Israel on a new cart drawn by oxen, by a female oxen that had just had calves. So when these people started to move the Ark of the Covenant, they did just like they had heard it had gotten where it had gotten. It had gotten there by being transported on a cart. Now, the problem is, that's not ever how God said to transport the Ark of the Covenant. God had given very specific instructions to Moses on how the Ark of the Covenant was to be transported. And when people reached out and touched it who were not Levites, we find Uzzah, verse 6, reached out his hand and steadied the ark, and the Lord's anger was aroused, and he died that day. And the scripture goes on to say that David was very angry because God's anger had burst out against Uzzah. Now, brothers and sisters, I find that problem with many Christians and many Christian businessmen today. You're doing the right thing, but you're insisting on doing it the way you saw the world do it, not the way God said that it should be done. You're copying your methodology from the world. Now, you have to understand, if you want God to bless something, you not only have to do the right thing, but you have to do the right thing in the right way. Now, we look at King David, and he again, when he recognized and he got over his little anger with God, and sometimes people get mad with God, but when he got over that and he realized, no, God had blessed the house of Obed-Edom, he said, I'm going to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. And it's not a very long journey from this point forward, because it's maybe 25, 30 kilometers south of Jerusalem down the mountain at this point. In fact, it's basically where we usually eat our last meal with the tour, where we have the big giant kebabs at Abu Ghad. Now, when David said, I'm going to take it up the hill the rest of the way to Jerusalem, this time he had the Levites carry it. We find the rest of the story there in that chapter. Now, when the Levites carried it, of course, God blessed. He was doing the right thing in the right way. Now, let me challenge you today. When you and I have a desire to do something for God, let us not look to the world and how the world has tried to do the works of God, how the world has tried to do the things that we're trying to do. Let's take the time to look in Scripture and say, God, this is what I believe you want me to do, and this is how the Scripture teaches me to do it. Let's do the right thing in God's way. Let's do the God thing, God's will, in God's methodology.